Welcome to my channel Economics Excellence. Today we will be going through the chapter Elasticity of Demand for Icse Economic Applications. This is meant for a quick revision for the upcoming examination. Through this mind map, we will try to cover the entire chapter. Price elasticity of demand. What do you mean by price elasticity of demand? Basically, the meaning is it is the degree of responsiveness of the quantity demanded to the change in price. What is it? Degree of responsiveness of the quantity demanded to the change in price. It can be expressed as EP is equals to, you have to put a negative sign here, minus percentage change in quantity demanded by percentage change in price. Now, when there is a change in the quantity demanded in response to the change in income of the individual for a particular commodity, due to what? Due to change in income, then income elasticity of demand is equals to percentage change in demand by percentage change in income of the consumer. This is what is called income elasticity of demand. Another type of elasticity of demand is cross elasticity of demand. What it is? Change in demand for one commodity due to the change in the price of the other commodity. Here you see, students, is percentage change in demand of commodity A by percentage change in price of commodity B. Then we get what? Cross elasticity of demand. Now let us proceed to the degrees of elasticity of demand. First, let us take perfectly elastic demand. Perfectly elastic demand can be written as EP is equals to infinity. It means what? Due to little change or no change in price, when it causes variations in quantity demanded of a commodity to any limit, it is called perfectly elastic demand, which can be denoted by EP is equals to infinity. Students, always remember that for perfectly elastic demand curve, we have a horizontal line parallel to x-axis. See here, it's a horizontal line parallel to x-axis. Okay? Otherwise, this question might have come to your mind because price and quantity demanded has got an inverse relationship. So, usually the shape of the curve should be a downward sloping. But when it is a perfectly elastic demand, the shape of the curve is a horizontal line. Horizontal line which will be what? Parallel to x-axis. Next comes perfectly inelastic demand. Over here you see, when there is no change in the quantity demanded, there is no change in the quantity demanded in spite of substantial change in price. Price is changing. So, if we just add these lines over here, see, price is changing. But demand remains the same. There is no change in the demand. That means what? That means what? It is inelastic, perfectly inelastic. No change in the demand at all. And we can write it as what? You can write EP also, ED also equals to 0. Okay? Let us proceed to the next one. Relatively elastic demand. We have got relatively elastic demand, or for the same thing, you can write it as elastic demand also. Only elastic demand. If it is elastic demand, in that case what is happening? When a small change in price causes a considerable change in quantity demanded. Means change in quantity demanded is more than the change in price. This one we can write it as EP or ED, as I am telling you repeatedly, is same. So it will be writing as EP is greater than 1. Okay? Over here you see the shape of the demand curve is a negatively sloped curve. But only difference is what? Here the shape of the curve will be little flatter to show that change in demand is more than the change in price. So EP is greater than 1. If I proceed to this one now, relatively inelastic demand, or we can write even it as inelastic demand. So when a substantial change in price has a leaking effect on extension or contraction in quantity demanded, means substantial change in price, but the change in the quantity demanded is less. So this one we can write it as EP is less than 1. Children, remember one thing, that as for EP is greater than 1, the demand curve is a bit flatter, and for EP is less than 1, the demand curve should be drawn little steeper. Now next comes unitary elastic demand. Unitary elastic demand, when we say, when the extension or contraction in quantity demanded is equally proportionate to the price change. Suppose price is changing by 5%, so there is an increase in price by 5%, there will be decrease in demand by 5%. Means there is a proportionate change. So why it is called unitary elastic demand, and we can write it as EP is equals to 1 also. And remember always the shape of the curve is a rectangular hyperbola. Okay? So this are the degrees of elasticity of demand. Now let us proceed to determinants of elasticity of demand. There are many. But always remember that while writing this answer, you have to remember in your mind that each and every point must be explained with an example and have to relate whether it's elastic or inelastic or relatively elastic or relatively inelastic or perfectly inelastic or perfectly elastic. You have to keep in mind it has to be related, otherwise the answer will be incomplete. Say for example, nature of the commodity. What sort of nature says a necessity of the commodity? It's a necessity good. In that case, it is relatively inelastic because you cannot change the demand much due to the change in the price. But whereas if it is a luxury one, in that case it will be what? It will be more than elastic. Then existence of substitutes. If substitutes exist, demand will be elastic. Why? Because with the change in the price of the commodity, you can go on shifting to the other substitutes. Means you can keep on changing. So it will be elastic. You can give example that this shows the existence of tea makes the demand for coffee elastic. Next, suppose variety of uses. The demand for a commodity which can be put to variety of uses will be relatively elastic. Say for example, if I take the example, say electricity can be used for cooking, heating, lighting, washing, etc. When the price of electricity services rises, consumer can cut down on some of the uses of electricity, confining themselves to the more urgent uses. So the demand for electricity will therefore be elastic. Now suppose we come to the point income of the purchaser. Income of the purchaser, if we see, suppose if the purchaser is rich, is hardly going to bother him by a small change in the price. So the demand for this consumer for the various commodities will therefore be relatively inelastic. But when the person is poor, that means if you say a poor consumer will attach importance even to a small change in prices, his demand therefore will be elastic. If we move on to the next point, that is role of habits. Say suppose if a person has developed the habit of smoking. He may not be able to reduce his consumption due to a rise in the price of the cigarettes. Okay? So his demand for cigars will be inelastic. Then durability of the goods. If the goods are more durable, that time elasticity of demand will be what? See, durable goods usually have low elasticities of demand. Why? Suppose a change in the price would not affect demand very much because most of the consumers will not buy a new piece of furniture until the old one is totally worn out. But for the semi-durable goods like t-shirts, shoes, etc., which cannot be used for very long period, are found to have relatively elastic demand. And if it is a perishable good, that means non-durable goods, in that case, say like milk, are found to have relatively inelastic demand. Next is given as importance of the good in the consumer's budget. If the expenditure on a good is only a very small percentage of the total spending, the consumer will not be bothered very much by a small price change. So such goods therefore will have low elasticities of demand. Next, suppose possibility of postponing consumption. Suppose if the good is like there is a possibility like you can postpone its consumption. Okay, obviously it will have high elasticity of demand. But if the possibility is not there for to postpone its consumption, say food grain, then it will be relatively inelastic. If you write about the timing, during short term, price elasticity of demand is relatively inelastic. But long run, where everything can be adjusted, it becomes more elastic in nature. Now just let me take one example, numerical example. The question is given here, students. A consumer purchased 10 units of a commodity when its price is rupees 5 per unit. He purchases 12 units of the commodity when its price falls to rupees 4. So calculate price elasticity of demand. So you have seen with a decrease in the price, quantity demanded is increasing. Yes? The formula that we have already seen here is the same formula here. E is equals to what? Minus, see, minus sign within the bracket. Percentage change in quantity demanded by percentage change in price. Now, how do we calculate this percentage change in demand? We do it delta Q by delta Q by Q into 100, and percentage change in price is delta P by T into 100. Say, for example, in the question that we have taken, consumer purchased how many units? 10 units of a commodity when the price was how much? 5. That means initial price was 5 and initial quantity is 10. So P is 5 and Q is 10. Okay? He purchases 12 units of commodity when the price falls to 4. That means change price is how much? 4 and change quantity is how much? 12. So how to find out percentage change in quantity demanded? Delta Q by Q into 100. Delta Q means change in quantity. Change in quantity. So how will we take? 12 is the change quantity minus the initial quantity. So 12 minus 10 is 2. Similarly, percentage change in price will calculate by delta P by P. Delta P means change in price. What is the change price? It was a falling price. It was how much? 4. And how much was initial price? 5. So 4 minus 5 is equals to minus 1. Now if we put the values, minus sign over here, 2 by minus 1, 5 by 10, we are getting the answer equals to 1. So it shows what? When EP is equals to 1, we call it as what? Unitary elastic demand or unit elasticity of demand. So it shows unit elasticity of demand. Students, you must remember, you must write the formula and you must write the notation over here what sort of elasticity of demand it is. Means about its degree. You must write that. I hope all of you have got a very quick revision of this part of price elasticity of demand. Similarly, if you get to calculate income elasticity of demand, only negative sign will not be there. So percentage, direct percentage is given. Percentage change in demand is this much and percentage change in income of the consumer is this much. Just you need to put both the values and you can calculate, or you can do in the same process. So this way you can have a quick revision of the chapter. Children, you must remember that this time the pattern of the question paper has changed. You will be getting might be some short case studies and will have to identify what sort of elasticity or what sort of degree of elasticity is this. From the previous chapter also you might get short case studies and telling you where you will be given like a case study and you will be asked to identify whether the demand curve will shift towards right or towards left, or it is a case of movement along the demand curve or contraction in demand, or you can say extension in demand or increase in demand or decrease in demand. Like this sort of questions will be asked. Okay, so I hope you are being benefited. Children, I will ask you to like, share and subscribe my channel Economics Excellence. Thank you. I will meet you in the next uploading. This I am going to upload you next. Thank you.